spots that they can make it into. Everyone would have dragged their junk all the way out here onto the lake bed for throwing it down to try to get into that main race. They're basically going to try, they're going to throw everything they have at that qualifying course, come up with a good time, and the fast leaders are actually going to get a spot in the big race.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see. We've got Tyson Simone coming up first. And let's see what kind of time he can put down. Now, we've just seen Cody Addington come out of the blocks this morning, and he's absolutely nailed it. He banged in a 2:25. I mean, I personally think that's going to hold most of the day.
It most definitely could. You know, the one thing that we need to also remember is last night, they go in, they dress that short course track again, clean it up, get rid of all those ruts. So those initial runners do have a little bit smoother transition area inside that short course. That can make up a huge difference when you're trying to make up just a couple seconds here or there. Yeah, you get all the glory to run in Power Hour, but you're running on a rough race course.
But we've also got to think about strategy for LCQ. Now, if you're already qualified for the race and you've just got to qualify well, okay, you can go and leave it out there on the course. And if you roll it, well, do you know what? You start at the back of the pack. But that can't happen for the LCQ guys. These LCQ guys have to finish their course, and they have to put in a good time to be one of those top 10 guys that get a place at the race.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a risk, but so many guys love to do it. You know, I talked to a bunch of the guys who were in that last chance qualifier, and they just love the idea of coming out here and just trying to get into this race. They're going to lay it all out here on the course. We're probably going to see some guys probably just push it right to the limits. Some guys will be able to rein it back in, pull that good time. We may see a little bit of action on this course today, which would be kind of fun.
But as hard as it may seem, 6 of these cars will not be racing in the main race, which means they're going to be coming all the way out to Johnson Valley for less than 3 minutes of driving time.
Well, there's all that adult beverage time as well. Some beautiful cars rolling out there too. When you think about it, you know, it's one thing to build a car, bring it out here when you know you have a date for the big dance, but some of these cars just absolutely gorgeous rolling through Hammertown right now, and it's just a crapshoot whether they're in the race or not.
Absolutely. So in only a few seconds now, we're going to see Tyson Samoka heading off the line and charging to us at that first of those Talladega bends. The course so beautifully prepared this morning by our course workers overnight. And we spoke about it yesterday, about how different the vehicles are. But it's quite rare to see 3 or 4 of the same type of vehicle. Every car has its own unique stamp on it.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you line up 4 or 5 bomber cars, 4 or 5 Kansas cars, or Miller cars, they're all going to have subtle differences in it specific to that driver. You know, weight distribution may change a little bit different. Shock setup's going to change a little bit different. Everyone wants the car set up specifically for them.
As Tyson heads up towards the second jump now, and towards the 4-wheel parts rock section. It's interesting for me this morning watching that rock section and how much easier these 4400 class cars climb over those rocks with these 40-inch tyres.
Well, I think
and full bypass suspension.
I think it's a combination of the 40-inch tire. I think it might be a combination of just experience in that car. You know, a lot of the time when the guys are in these Ultra 4 cars, these 4400s, they just got a little bit more seat time than some of the other classes, and just where they're able to power in there, high range, get that front up in the air, take the pivot, drop down and drop it back in the desert. It works really well. Yeah,
we're seeing Tyson there taking a very safe line as he comes off the 4-wheel parts rocks. You see that sand changing colour as he's digging back through to the moister ground underneath. As the sun starts to rise up above the hills here in Johnson Valley.
Beautiful day for racing. Just enough wind to maybe move a little bit of dust around. Not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah, visibility is absolutely fantastic this morning. It's perfect race conditions. Tyson coming over the top of short bus now. Keeping it safe, keeping it steady. Talking about it earlier, it's that fine line between qualifying hard and making sure you get to that race, or leaving it all out there, suffering a rollover or worse, a breakage.
Well, and it's also important to remember, these guys are just racing each other for these spots. It's just the fastest LCQ qualifiers will get into that main race. And then the question also, I noticed there was a couple guys on the list that did not show up. They may have taken advantage of some of those other slots that we were talking about earlier that some of the rock bouncers earned, which is an option they can take. There is a good chance that there may only be 2 or 3 of these guys that don't actually get to make it into the main race, and they're only really racing each other in this particular qualifier.
I do love this fact that we've got strategy on and off the track. I think that's absolutely remarkable.
Absolutely. Patrick head up into the four-wheel parts rock section. Just like you said before, Jim, you can see how much easier it is for these cars with the 40-inch tall tires just to roll up in there and roll through. Part of that's probably the tire size. Part of it might be the fact that these guys are allowed to run those sticky tires.
Just watching Aaron Patrick now coming around to the back of short bus. I was just talking to Cody Addington, and he was saying how this is really chopping out the back there, and the car was at all kinds of crazy angles in the off-camber sections. And that is only going to get worse as the day goes on.
Oh, with all the cars that are going to be qualifying today, this course is going to get torn up more and more and more.
As Aaron Patrick makes his way down, Kevin Hart roars off the line. Car sounds fantastic. It heads off over the first jump and into the Talladega bends. Ticker coming across now with the times. Cody Addington 2:25, Jeff McKinley 2:27, Dan Fresh 2:32, Inaki Lanzagorta with a 2:46, a great time there from the Spanish man. Jason Watts 2:50, Jemmy Hoare 2:50, then Mark Nicholson 3:07 and Quentin Kilburn at 3:08. In 9th is Randy Watson with a 3:34. So some good times already being laid down there, but that 2:25 of Cody Addington, I think that could stand for a very long time today.
That is a blistering fast time. Even when we compare it to some of the qualifying times we saw yesterday, I mean, our fast qualifier yesterday was, you know, 2:39, 2:40, and I mean that was a fast pace for him. So to see some of these Ultra 4 cars still up in that same number, that 250, that 307, you know, those aren't fast times. We still have a lot of fast times to come, but I do think that you're right. I think there's a good chance that that initial time laid out is going to stand all day.
And as we watch the LCQ drivers, it's worth noting that later on today, we have Power Hour. And we've got the big guns coming out to play. We've got Eric Miller, Josh Byler, Shannon Campbell, Waylon Campbell, Levi Shirley, JP Gomez, Rusty Byler, Paul Herschel, last year's fastest qualifier, of course, Lauren Healy, Brian Capera, Jason Shearer, last year's winner, Raul Gomez, Clay Gilstrap, Andrew McLaughlin, Randy Slauson, Bailey Cole, Bailey Campbell, and Derek West, rounding off an incredible group of drivers that'll be joining us later this afternoon.
Who are you looking forward to see the most?
Well, for me, it's going to be a battle between Paul Herschel and Jason Shearer. Both of them qualify incredibly fast. But Shannon Campbell, let's not rule him out. He is going to be there giving it everything. So is Lauren Healy. You can throw these names up in the air and take your pick. There are so many great guys. It's going to come down to hundredths of a second.
Absolutely, and I think probably the bigger thing that's going to happen with Shannon is he'll be the first one to admit it. When he gets on those qualifying courses, if the sun gets in his eyes, it gets very difficult for him to see. So it will all depend on when he's running, what the cloud cover's like, what the sun is like for that particular driver.
And we're watching James Sweeney now heading over the four-wheel parts rocks. And he looks good. A very, very different looking car to what we normally see. James Sweeney looking nice and smooth, coming out round the back of Short Bus, climbing that hill. It's a full throttle assault.
He's pushing hard, he's doing well. We've watched our leaders crest that hill at about the 1:30 mark.
And as we wait for James Sweeney to come across the finish line, we watch as Eric Wicks gets ready for his chance to qualify for the 2019 Nitto King of the Hammers powered by Optima batteries main race, which takes place on Friday.
One thing that we do notice with a lot of these last chance qualifiers is they both have the driver and the co-driver in the car. And a lot of the times they're big heavy hitters. They'll drive just solo in qualifying, just for a little bit of weight savings. But if you came out here all the way to Johnson Valley with your driver and your buddy and you're here to race the race, and this may be the only seat time you get in the race, well, your co-driver wants in that passenger seat, no questions asked.
Absolutely. Also, it's fantastic fun to have a co-driver sitting next to you, checking you up, having some of the laughs, telling you when you get it right, but more importantly, telling you when you're getting it wrong.
You know, I made a mistake last year thinking Jason Shearer was running solo, because every time I saw him outside of this event at Hammers, he was running in a single seat car. And I talked to him afterwards, and I asked him this year, are you running solo or are you going to put the co-driver back in the car? And his response was simple: having a co-driver makes this race so much more fun.
As we watch Eric Wicks coming around the second of the Talladega bends, and heading out towards the second jump and the four-wheel parts rock section. And he's looking good. Little rooster tails there, hitting off the backs of those tires. Bomber style frame.
Moving through that desert section.
And for anybody who's just joining us, you're joining us for the LCQ, the last chance qualifier. 16 cars battling out for the final 10 places at this year's 2019 Nitto King of the Hammers, powered by Optima batteries.
That was an incredibly smooth line through that rock section too. As you saw, he picked the right line and just rolled through it like it wasn't even there. He's got a very good time so far.
Good flow, good transition. I was watching Dan Fresh come through there earlier today in the other bomber, and he was also very, very smooth. But we know these bomber cars, they're built for KOH. They're built for these trails. Just is proving why.
Well, you know, for the longest time, this was Randy's backyard. He's moved away recently, but this was where he wheeled. And when he built his first bomber, it was built to come out here and have fun. Very good time coming over the top.
Yeah, he's not going to trouble our back markers, but he is making sure that he's going to have a spot in the main race on Friday. There's Derek Ludica on course now, as Eric Wicks crosses the finish line. I think it's absolutely certain that Eric Wicks has got himself a place in the main race. He looked really good.
Incredibly fast time for him.
Another smooth line through the four-wheel parts rock section.
Slowed down a little bit.
It's so easy just to lose a few crucial seconds in those places. You just become slightly unsighted.
Well, it's such a different mindset, you know, King of the Hammers, when you're out here racing the actual big race. You can't push it like it's a sprint. You have to plan it. It's a marathon.
I think you need to tell that to our top guys, because the last few years they've been sprinting from start to finish.
Well, you have to. If you want to win, that's the way to win the race. But I think for a lot of these guys, these LCQ guys, the goal is get to the finish, get to the end.
But you've raced this race, I've raced this race. We both know that you cannot go out there and go a soft pace. If you go a soft pace, you're going to time out. You still have to drive it as a race car.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the one nice thing. I actually preferred when I raced this race to have people in front of me. I like to see people that you can pace, you can chase. I like chasing people through that desert, through those rock sections. It's a fun game of follow the leader. I think if you're out leading it, I think it's good, but I think it could cause you to sort of lay up a little bit and not push the car really hard.
Brian McVeigh leaves the line now as Derek Ludiker heads towards the finish. Brian's car sounds mean as he heads up through that first bend.
On the line, we have Robert Osborne will be leaving the line next.
As you watch Brian McVeigh. Sounds fantastic as he heads out towards the four-wheel parts rock section. Tiptoeing across the dirt.
You know, that's one thing I've talked about with a couple drivers. We talk a lot about suspension changes and the modifications and the tech being pushed. But for the longest time, most of the drivers in these races were using crate engines, basically LS-based crate engines. But, you know, we just had Jordan Pellegrino up here, and he said, you know, it's a 100% aftermarket 770 horsepower engine. Talking to a few drivers who are running crate engines, they sort of feel that they're at that point where this sport has become so fast, crate engine's not going to cut it anymore. You know, years ago, desert racing guys made that transition out of crate engines into purpose-built race engines. This sport, we're at that point right now. You see so many guys out here with 7, 8, 770, 850, 900 horsepower. That's what you need to move through the desert with these cars.
Yeah, lots of these cars aren't running pump fuel anymore. They're using race fuels, high octane, performance engines. So we watch Robert Osborne getting ready for the start. So we're just over halfway through the 2019 LCQ. 10 cars trying to earn a place at this year's King of the Hammers.
Such a great mix of cars too. You can see you've got some really well built bomber cars. You got some guys who obviously built the car themselves out here to race. It's just good to see the privateers out here still pushing hard.
But the only thing they've actually got in common is they've got big engines, good suspension, and 40-inch plus tires. Almost every single one of the crews that we see racing, they've all got a backstory, they've all got a reason for being here, they've all got a family that supports them and friends that have come from miles around to make sure this dream comes true.
Well, 90% of the time it's the same story. They came out, watched a race, maybe watched the live feed, maybe saw it on television, maybe read about it in a magazine, and they just came out here with their friends, wanted to see it. And then what happens? Someone catches that bug. The next year they're back. Maybe they're racing stock, maybe they're racing modified, but eventually it just gets in your skin. You live, you breathe. This becomes your life coming out here. And the next thing you know, you got a full-fledged race team with all your buddies for coming out here with their RVs and supporting your race team.
And none more so than our current leader, Cody Addington, who really came from the grassroots. He first raced here in an old Toyota, completely bashed up, and now he's sitting here in pole position in an IFS custom-built race car.
Well, I think the one very important thing to remember about Ultra 4 racing that's different than a lot of other types of off-road racing is Ultra 4 racing is a no-chase race. You are responsible for the car when you're on the course. I think that's what has kept a lot of guys as builders/drivers of these cars. car breaks down, they can't just jump on the radio and tell their pit crew to meet them at mile marker X and change the tire. It's on them to get that car to the next pit. .802, Nate Giese off the line.
It looks like we've got a breakage out on course. That's a tough break for those guys. Let's not forget they're racing for a spot in the main race. No one likes to see that, but it looks like we've got our first fatality of the day.
Car fatality, car fatality.
Car fatality, I'd like to point out, yes.
I think that's one thing to remember, that most important, everyone who's here, everyone who's watching home, or if you're watching live feed and on your way out, this is not a this is a dangerous sport. You know, talking to Dave Cole last night at the shootout, he asked us to just reiterate to everybody, please, on race day, stay off the race course. Don't go out there and drive across the race course. These cars come in, they're heavy, they're fast, and they're on a mission. They're not looking for you as you walk around the race course. So everyone just stay safe in the desert, and you'll have a great time.
Yeah, there's plenty of spectator information out there. Go to ultra4racing.com. Oh!
We have a rollover.
Now, this is the area that we were talking about earlier. I said this is cutting up, it's off camber, it's really nasty, and there we go.
And this is exactly what we were seeing yesterday. You know, the cars go in there, that's such a worn out area, those ruts. We talked about how dangerous those ruts can be. Those ruts can either help you or hurt you. And if you get in there in the wrong spot, that's exactly what happens. That front tire catches, and you're going right on your side.
So it's a tough break for Nate Giese. Let's not forget he was racing for a chance to race in the main race. And it looks like that's not going to happen for him. Less than 2 minutes in, he's on his side, round the back of short bus. But we will get to see our fantastic recovery crews in action once again.
Oh,
you were watching the shootout last night. That was amazing, wasn't it?
Oh, the shootout is tons of fun. You know, that's one of my favorite things coming out here to King of the Hammers, that Monday night shootout. It's definitely a good time. If you didn't see it, it is up. You can watch the replay of it on ultra4racing.com/live. It's still on there, and it's definitely worth a watch. And the recovery crew, they got a workout last night on that shootout.
They did indeed. It's worth noting that all of the live broadcasts from this week can be seen again on ultra4racing.com/live. Go on there, pick up the live links and follow it, and you can catch up with all the action that's been happening throughout the week. And the best bit is you can fast forward to the good bits.
All right, while we're waiting for the recovery crew to pick that car up, we're going to take a quick break here at the 2019 Nitto King of the Hammers, powered by Optima batteries, Ultra 4 qualifying.
4WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts and have been for over 50 years. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Whether you want to order the best parts online or shop in store, do the work yourself or get it done by a pro, all roads lead to 4WP. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.
We didn't just test the new Optima Yellow Top with Pure Flow technology, we tortured it. King of the Hammers is 181 battery-killing miles of relentless, unforgiving hellishness. It's one thing to call yourself the ultimate power source. It's another thing to prove it. The all-new Optima Yellow Top with pure flow technology with up to 3 times the battery life. Unsurpassed performance built to fit today's vehicles. Optima, the ultimate power
All right, everybody,
source.
welcome back to the Nitto 2019 King of the Hammers powered by Optima batteries. We are at 4,400 Ultra 4 qualifying today. We've got a little bit of course recovery going on. 2 vehicles out there on the course that need a little bit of work, but we got something pretty special coming up, don't we, Mont?
Yeah, no, we've got some in-car footage coming up right now. We're going to see what's been happening out there on track today. We've already seen some really fast times being laid down, particularly by Cody Addington, who's our current leader with a 2:25. As we're just watching our course workers clearing the course. This is Nate Geese finishing his white run.
Yeah, he had a rollover on the backside up by Short Bush, those ruts that we've been talking about. They just seem to be getting worse and worse and worse as the day goes on.
Yes. So both of these cars are going to fail to qualify for the main race. Always sad to see, but there is only 10 spots on offer. Wonderful shots there of Hammertown. As we look across King Hill and into the short course and just look at the size of it.
And it's only Tuesday.
It's ridiculous. Amazes me every year how it grows. And each year we get more and more racing. Let's not forget, we've still got the big races yet to come. We've got the EMC. We've also got the T1 Desert Invitational. That's going to be incredible to see all the big stars from Desert Racing. And then we've got the big one, the 2019 King of the Hammers, powered by Optima batteries on the Friday.
Yeah, I certainly think it's going to be interesting to see the trophy trucks out here. I was talking to a few friends last night who helped pit for a few of the big guys. They were telling me that they went out, pre-ran some of the course, and even though that this is a not necessarily a trophy truck friendly area, they feel the course is good, but there are a couple areas out there that are a little bit different than what they're used to. We'll call it that. I think there's a couple what they call in the desert gotcha sections.
Well, it's going to be great to see that. And I love the fact that they're not just setting up a complete and standard desert race. They're doing something different because this is something different. This is Johnson Valley. This is the home of the Hammers.
Absolutely. I think it's kind of neat to see the trophy truck show up here. For the longest time, Ultra 4 cars, they would show up to their race, and I remember a long time ago when the Ultra 4 cars first started to show up in those desert racing events, they made them run a blue light on the back because they figured they'd be too slow in the desert sections, that other vehicles would be driving into the back of them. After the first year, they came back and said, you know what, you don't need the blue light anymore. Apparently you guys are pretty quick.
Well, our course workers have done a fantastic job. They've already cleared the course, and sitting on the line at the moment now, it's Scott Fister, and he will be leaving to try his chances at this last chance qualifier.
Stunning car, incredibly low. We talked about that yesterday, about the difference. There is that balance, Do you want the car super low for good speed? Do you want to have the car high for more ground clearance? It's really a balancing act in these cars.
And Scott's looking good here, the engine roaring hard as he makes his way around the second bend, heading towards second jump and then the 4-wheel parts rock section. Now, last 2 runners on course, we saw a breakage and we saw a rollover as well. So how would that have affected this guy's nerves? He would have been held on the line. He would have been thinking to himself, wondering what's going on. Was there breakage? Is the course changed? He's probably out there pre-running this morning and he'll be worried about what's been happening.
I think for a lot of these guys, last chance qualifier, this is your chance. Lay it on the line no matter what. I don't think you're worried about anything other than just getting through the race with a good time. And so far, it looks like he's got a good pace going.
Yeah, this is a really nice steady pace. About on 3-minute spec, I reckon.
Plus the other, if you're in communication with your team, their team will tell you, we had a rollover, we had a breakage. That's 2 other people that you don't have to beat now.
Absolutely.
So the chances of you getting in the big race just went up by 2 spots.
Indeed. And this is where comms is so important, and strategy. It makes short work of that same area where we just saw a car roll.
So smooth through there, and that's exactly what we talked about, the difference between the ground clearance versus the weight distribution of the car. This car is so low when you see it sitting in the pits.
Watch Scott Fisher now coming on down the backside of Short Bus, and next off the line will be Tim Priest.
Just look at those ruts off the starting line. You could see him fighting just to make that turn, and that costs you time.
Yeah, those ruts are going to get deeper and deeper.
As he heads out to the four-wheel parts rock section.
Tim Priest taking a steady line through the rocks. He hasn't got to try to win this thing, he's just trying to qualify for the big race, and he's doing a great job of that so far. You can see how that car's seesawing in those ruts as it's going up there, because all these cars are different sizes. Some of them are wider, some of them are narrower. And these narrower cars, they bounce across the ruts that are made by the bigger cars.
Yeah, you're always fighting the terrain out there, and you know, sometimes in the main race you have the option of dropping out into a completely different line if it gets too rutted out. But here in qualifying, you're kind of committed to that one section. You've got to run it. You can see that left rear tire lift as he makes that corner.
A steady run here from Tim.
Good time up over the top.
Going to be just around the sort of 3:05 mark, I reckon. As we watch Joey Webber leaving the line. Car 686.
I got a soft spot in my heart for any car that runs body panels like that. I just love them. Absolutely love them.
Joey Webber looking really nice out there.
You know, it's just like you were saying earlier, you can tell that car is physically smaller than the other cars. Great in the rocks, nice small package, but a little bit harder to handle in the desert because you're fighting those ruts.
And let's not forget, he's one of our last chance qualifiers. Trying to get a spot in the main race on Friday. Every car that races King of the Hammers has to qualify. To do so, you have to go to various regional races. But if it all goes wrong, and you're not able to go to those races or get those last qualifying spots, you can come here for the last chance qualifier, the LCQ, and that's what we're watching right now. As Joey Webber makes his way up round the back of Short Bus.
Pace looking well so far.
Yeah, it's nice pace as he heads over the top. Again, he's on about just over 3 minute kind of pace.
And each one of these last chance qualifiers are just racing each other for a limited number of spots in the main race. It's kind of like when you see a bear in the woods, Jim. You don't have to outrun the bear, you just got to outrun everyone you're with.
Now, this is one of the faster guys. This is Jake Yeoman. Solid axle car. Jake is a seasoned competitor. He will know what it takes to put down a fast qualifying time.
The nice thing about the LCQ race, and for these guys, if you're, like you said, a seasoned competitor, you know, at this point, you know a time you have to beat. You don't have to beat the leader. You just have a certain number of guys you just got to get ahead of, and then you can save that car for race day, lock in your position.
As we watch Jake Yeoman, and he looks hot through this section.
Oh, he's pushing hard through this particular section. You can see him working through there, making quick work of those ruts. Look at that.
Look at that. Wonderful transition through that turn there. Very fast indeed. This is almost certainly going to be sub 3 minutes.
I think this will definitely guarantee him a spot in the big dance on Friday. Now this car's got an interesting story behind it, Rob. Look at the tires on that. Those tires do not look like regular King of the Hammers race tires, and that is because he was out last night for the shootout trying to qualify, Rob Inglis. He was in that buggy trying to throw it down on the Holly EFI shootout hill. Unfortunately, he had an interesting rollover event happen, which was fun to see. But now he's back here at LCQ. It's all about strategy. Didn't make it through the shootout last night, so he's going to try here at LCQ.
I love the tenacity of competitors who come out here and they keep trying to get a place in the race on Friday. As we watch Rob English, Jake Yeoman is heading towards the line, and very shortly we'll see the time for Jake Yeoman as he crosses the finish.
You can see Inglis make quick work of those rocks. Definitely fighting through those ruts. Those tires will bite into those ruts a lot harder than any other brand of tire out there. They have such an aggressive tread. Specifically designed for rock bouncing, those tires were, so this is not necessarily the best place to show off their ability.
Indeed. It's nice to see so many different ideas on the race course though. Just wait for confirmation of Jake Yeoman's time.
Inglis is running a good pace over the top of short bus, under 2 minutes coming down. You can see that they're basically paddle tires throwing all that rock out there. It's awesome to see. And we've got Pat Beckwith off the line. Through that short course. You can see Inglis come out through the Jeep arch.
Just getting confirmation. Just getting confirmation. What's that? Just getting confirmation now that is actually Trey McKinley, Jeff McKinley's 17-year-old son. Jeff has already qualified through, but now Trey is trying his chances in his dad's old car. 17 years of age, Ian. How cool is that?
And that's exactly what we were talking about earlier, the next generation of racers coming through, going out, trying their hand at this race. You know, they will be the ones that continue this this legacy on.
He's doing a good job here. He looks fast as he comes up through the back.
Definitely making quick work of that rut section.
Yeah, the IFS looking really good through there. Oh. That doesn't look so good. We got smoke.
Oh, that is not good.
It looks like the engine's running on. Oh, no. That's a tough break for Trey.
Mechanical failure like that is the worst way to end your day. You can see the safety crew in there quick.
Yep. Now, is that steam or smoke?
It's hard to say based on the fact that he is not using the fire extinguisher. I think it may just be a coolant line failure.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe he's got to turn the fans on, maybe. Something simple. Who knows? But anyway, it's a really tough break for the young man. Looking really good and smooth up until that point.
Well, you know, we talked about this yesterday, Jim. You know, you push these vehicles so hard, right to the limit. And, you know, sometimes it's a big failure. Sometimes it's a $1,000 part that goes wrong. Sometimes it's a $10,000 part go wrong. But more than often, it is usually a $5 or $6 part that ends your day in the desert.
Absolutely. But it's been a very exciting day here for the 4400 qualifying at King of the Hammers 2019. We've seen Cody Addington come out of the blocks really hard, laying down a 225.
Yeah, an amazing way to start the day. You know, qualifying is always great to watch because you get to see the cars out there. You know, especially even if you're in here in Hammertown, you can watch the majority of that qualifying lap right here from down in the, or you can come watch on the Jumbotron. You got the short course. It's just non-stop action.
Absolutely. And we've got so many fantastic cars coming up very shortly. Once the LCQ is finished, we're going to be back to standard 4400 qualifying. I'm just looking down my list here. We've got Brian Crofts in that fantastic two-seat Dragon car straight out of Jimmy's. We've also got one of the Gomez brothers, Marcus Gomez. He's going to be out here in that fully independent car. You can bet your life he's going to be really pushing hard.
Oh, the Gomez brothers always put on a great show when they're out. Even no matter where they race, it's always fun to watch one of the Gomez brothers race.
And then we've got Michael Bergman in another UFL car as well. So we've got three very, very fast cars coming up in the next batch.
You know, Brian and I, Brian's a good friend of mine. We wheel together quite often at Easter Jeep Safari. And, you know, when he was having that vehicle built, we talked about it. And now that he's been out here and had seat time in it, I was talking to him this morning about it. Sort of asked, you know, how different is it than the solid axle car? How much driving changes? And he just basically said, it's a completely different car. Yeah. There's no way to compare it. It's just going to take time to get used to it. And seat time, that plays a lot into this race.
Okay, as we watch the recovery here now, we're going to be very shortly going to a POV image from Dan Fresh's car from earlier today. Dan Fresh, of course, driving the Savvy bomber car. We saw Dan qualify fast yesterday in EMC, but this is Dan in the bomber car earlier today, and he laid down a fantastic time. Solid axle vehicle and sub 2 minutes 30.
Yeah, you know, great shot of him and the co-driver in there. You could see them in that car, just handling that short course. You know, you think it's smooth out there because it's nice, smooth dirt, but you can see how violent it is even just in the car, trying to drive it through some of these turns. You know, being in a car with your co-driver, it's just so much fun. This race is always more fun when you got someone sitting beside you talking on the comms.
This is great footage. Just watch the way that Dan's hunkering up there. He's got his belts much looser than I'd imagine. I like to have my belts absolutely hauled in tight, so I can't move at all. See his gear just hand down there, just changing down. Going over the four-wheel parts rock section at the moment, and look how gnarly that is. He drops off the far side. And here we go. We get to see what it looks like from the driver's eye now. And this is getting really rutted. Can you see those rocks on the side there? And this is all they can see. He's having to make those split-second decisions, Ian, as he's making his way up through there. You saw the height of that massive rock. You see the depth of the valley. We struggle to see that as we actually watch them on course. Now watch how this goes off camber before he heads up through to short bus. We've just seen cars here roll earlier today, and it's as choppy as you like. And it's going to get worse and worse. Takes that left-hand line, making his way up through to the top of short bus now. And you're balancing the throttle. You don't want too much power to be spinning the wheels as he comes over the top. And now this is a controlled crash landing as he makes his way down through short bus. Look at the size of those rocks. You're having to make a decision seconds before you get there.
And every single one of those rocks will jump out and just end your day.
Yeah, we just see there, he was just checking up. We saw it as he coming down the hill, and that would have cost him a couple of seconds. Comes around the back of King Hill now, making his way towards the Jeep Arch. And this is an interesting part of the track as well. We've seen people like Dan here going much wider to get a fresh line so they can get that horsepower down on the track.
Well, it's important when you come into this turn. You know, this turn gets so rutted out. You want to carry a lot of speed into that turn. Get the bank, get lined up, and then get up this hill climb, cut the corner tight, and then drop through that Jeep Arch.
Now watch this. There won't be a hesitation. He's just throwing it off the top and hoping he's got his line right.
Oh, it's the only way to do it. A car always goes downhill.
Always does. We keep saying it, but gravity sucks. Fantastic run there from Dan Fresh in the solid axle savvy bomber.
Yeah, no questions asked. That was a fast run. The cool thing about, you watch that POV footage at the hood of that car, you can see the hood stays relatively flat. You can see how hard the suspension is working, trying to keep that vehicle clean and flat. The one thing I did notice during that run, where we saw the rollover, right at that one spot, you're basically coming from full sun to full shade. And when you have a helmet on, visor down, trying to see, that can mess with you. That changes that terrain. It's hard to see what the track looks like when it's in the dark like that.
Indeed, yep. So we're just watching young Trey McKinley here, trying to move his car off the trail.
Lots of action all week coming to you live here from Hammertown. Tonight is the Pit Crew Challenge. We'll start tonight at 5:30, right here on the main stage.
And then, of course, on Wednesday, it's the Everyman Challenge. The largest class of vehicles here at King of Hammers this week. We've got the 4500s, the 4600s, and the 4800s battling it out over 167 miles.
And then all week we're having AMSOIL After Dark. It was kind of neat. I hung out here last night, watched a little bit of it. Just a basic recap of the day. They're going to interview some of your favorite drivers, maybe get some background, maybe get some foreground as to what they're thinking about the race. It's just a fun little show to sort of cap off the day.
And then, of course, it's Thursday. It's the Desert Invitational. The T1 trucks come to Johnson Valley. I'm really looking forward to this.
I am too. A good friend of mine, Jesse James, is going to bring his trophy truck out of retirement, so it'll be fun to see how well that works for him. He hasn't driven in a long time.
And then, of course, it's after dark in the evening. We get to catch up with some of the superstars from that day and get some thoughts and views from other drivers as we look forward to the main race.
And then, of course, Friday, what we've been waiting for all week is the Nitto 2019 King of the Hammers powered by Optima batteries. It's the reason we're all here, and it's the reason that we're qualifying today.
And then, of course, we've got catch up with After Dark, After Hammers. We'll begin the drivers in, telling us about their stories and what's been going on during the day, and a recap on all of the week's action at King of the Hammers.
And lastly, it's the 2019 KOH Week Awards. Will be Saturday, 9:30 a.m. Live broadcast, handing out the awards for who finished where and celebrate their victory.
So it's a beautiful day here in Johnson Valley. We're qualifying for the 4400 class today, and we've already seen some fantastic action. Cody Addington laying down an incredibly fast 2 minutes and 25-second run. But currently we're in the middle of LCQ. 16 cars fighting for the last 10 places in the main race.
Yeah, you know, it's just sort of, we just saw a car leave the line recently here that tried to qualify last night during the Holly EFI shootout, throwing it down rock bouncer style, but didn't make it, had a rollover, so he's out here today to try to qualify during the last chance qualifier. You know, if you bring your stuff all the way out here to the lake bed, you might as well take advantage of as much time on the race course as you can. Absolutely.
And there's Trey McGinley just being taken off the course there by one of our course marshals. And we'll get back to the action very shortly.
4WP is more than a store. We're truck and Jeep experts and have been for over 50 years. From wheel and tire upgrades to full custom builds, 4WP has you covered. Whether you want to order the best parts online or shop in store, do the work yourself or get it done by a pro, all roads lead to 4WP. Do your rig right. Shop online or find your store at 4WP.com.
We didn't just test the new Optima Yellow Top with Pure Flow technology, we tortured it. King of the Hammers is 181 battery-killing miles of relentless, unforgiving hellishness. It's one thing to call yourself the ultimate power source, it's another thing to prove it. The all-new Optima Yellow Top with Pure Flow technology with up to 3 times the battery life. Unsurpassed performance built to fit today's vehicles. Optima, the ultimate power source.
Years of off-road racing dominance, proprietary patented race technology, proudly made in the USA, unparalleled customer service and support, the choice of champions. King Shocks, the leader in off-road shock technology.
Okay, welcome back to Hammertown. We're here for the 2019 Nitto King of the Hammers powered by Optima batteries, and we are here today for the 4400 class qualifying.
Right now we're deep into LCQ, last chance qualifier. These guys are fighting it out for one of 10 spots in the main race, basically racing each other for their literal last chance to make it into the big show on Friday.
Nearly 20 cars battling it out for 10 spots. We've seen some fantastic runs, Well, we've seen some failures, we've seen some breakages, and we've seen some rollovers. This LCQ giving us plenty of action today.
You know, it always does. The nice thing about the LCQ guys is they're here. They got to throw it all down on the line to try to make it. Some guys push it a little too far, and that's when you get to see some fun on the course.
Oh, we're just getting there some fantastic footage of Brian Croft's new car. Ooh, no, it's not.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay, so we're watching Pat Beckworth now, EMC qualifier. So Pat Beckworth on a really nice run here. Keeping it clean, keeping it tidy as he makes his way down through the Jeep arch. Taking the different line.
Now this is an EMC qualifier that we did not see yesterday, so he spelled in at the end of the LCQ today as we're getting ready to go back to standard 4400 qualifying here shortly. All right, previous this week we had the Can-Am UTV race here in Johnson Valley. Lots of action, no questions asked.
I mean, when I describe the King of the Hammers course to someone that's never been here, I usually tell them that you have to come here to actually realize what it is. this isn't just the toughest UTV race, this is just the toughest off-road race in general, I'd say, in the world.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the 2019 King of the Hammers powered by Optima batteries. Today we're qualifying for the 4400, the big race on Friday. LCQ, last chance qualifiers are all done, and now we're back onto our list of people qualifying who are trying to pick out a good starting position for the main race.
As you watch Kenneth Goodall lining up on the line, let's have a look at the results from today. So in first position, we've got Cody Addington with a 2:25.
Jeff McKinley with a 2:27 sitting in second place. Right behind him is Dan Fresh with a 2:32.
And then in fourth place, we've got Kevin Hart with a 2:41. And then in fifth place, my good friend Inaki Lanzagorta all the way from Spain.
Jason Waits 2:50, Jimmy Hoffey 2:50 as well. You can see, look at how identical times on that 6th and 7th place.
Absolutely amazing. Then in 8th place, it's Scott Pfister with a 2:51. And in 9th, Jake Yeoman, a fantastic time for Jake in the LCQ with a 2:54.7.
And rounding us out is Brian McVeigh at that sub 3 minute mark. You know, it's interesting, yesterday we kept saying, would anyone get under that 3 minute mark? And now our top 10, they're definitely well underneath that 3 minute mark rather. And I think we're gonna see the pace just get faster, faster, faster all day.
Okay, we're just getting news. There's Kenneth Goodall's lining up on the line. He's got a fuel pressure problem, so they're going to be dragging him backwards, and we're going to be getting another vehicle onto that start line. So Ian, while we're waiting for the next batch of qualifiers to come, I mean, let's have a look down through here. We've got some fantastic cars coming up. So obviously we've got Brian Cross. Now Brian Cross running. So we've got Brian Cross coming up. Now we spoke about Brian earlier, but this is a 2-seat Dragon car. So this is an evolution of Lauren Healy's old Dragon, which we've seen Cody Addington driving earlier today, taking first position. So what's different with this new 2-seat Dragon?
Well, you know, I talked to Randy Rod over at Jimmy's, and I've talked to Brian when they were building it. There's just some subtle differences. It's kind of interesting. If you look at that car, you would look at it and think, oh, it's just another red Dragon. But there's just a few inches here, a few inches there. A-pillar moved forward for some better visibility. Engine moved back a couple inches for better weight distribution. Obviously, 2 seats, second seat, co-driver, and as we've heard from Jason Shearer, completely changes this race when you put a co-driver in it. You know, I think that it's a similar car, but I think that car is going to be incredibly fast.
Fantastic, we look forward to that. And we've also got Marcus Gomez, one of the first of the 3 Gomez brothers racing today. Now Marcus is using a fully independent vehicle. We're used to seeing the other UFO cars with having a solid axle, but this has an incredible axle situation on the back. It's split in the center, so he's got this independent thing going on. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on this course.
Anyone who's familiar with old school desert racing or old pre-runner, that's a twin traction beam type design, basically where the axle's split in the middle, or a TTB. Worked incredibly well for years in the front of a lot of desert racing or pre-runner trucks. How well it adopts to the back, well, only time will tell. He certainly finished last year, but how will he be fast enough to be a winner this year? You never know. At the hands of a Gomez brothers, it's going to be a good show either way.
I was looking at the vehicle the other day and they had it stripped down. The shafts in the back of that thing, there's something like 52 spline. They are huge, and the CV joints are the size of my head. They're quite amazing.
All right, we've seen the top 10. Now let's take a look at 11 through 20. We got Eric Wicks at 2:58, James Sweeney 3:02, Tim Priest at 3:05, Mark Nicholson 3:07, Aaron Patrick 3:08.
Then we've got Quentin Hilburn with a 3:08.9, and then Rob English with a 3:10.9.
Derek Lutka with a 3:12, Joey Weber 3:16, and then a huge gap to that 20th slot of almost 20 seconds. Randy Watson 3:34.
Yeah, we saw him going nice and steady as he went the way round. But this is all going to change. These guys are going to get pushed down. as we start to see some of the hard hitters coming out to play.
I'll be honest with you, one of my favorite vehicles is lining up here. I think it's going to be the third one off the line in this next batch, and that is the classic Ultra 49 Ford. I love that truck. It's a 1949 cab on a tube chassis, and it's an amazing work of art. I absolutely love that truck.
So we keep talking about the differences between solid axle and IFS suspension. Our very good friend Bas Husselquist, our co-host who sits up here, he was out in the pits earlier this week and he's been finding out a little bit about the differences. So let's have a look and see what we got.
What's up, guys? Miles Haskell, we're here in the pits. We got the Red Dragon. Lauren Healy built this car. It's a single-seat IFS car. Cody Addington recently purchased it last year, done very well with it. This is the winningest buggy in Ultra 4 right now, and it's an IFS car. So down here, we have an upper and a lower A-arm. So in the desert, these things are extremely fast. In the rocks, you kind of have to use a little bit of momentum and blast through it. They hold up very well, but this car is gonna smoke through the desert. And then over here we have Miramon's straight axle car, and there's a lot of debate. Most of the guys are going to IFS, but straight axle, so when you're in the rocks, they really shine, because when you hit a rock, one side goes up, which forces the other side down. So in the rocks, they really do well climbing. They're very fast in the desert, but not near as fast as the IFS. So the great debate of IFS versus straight axle, this is what we got. We'll see how it plays out on race day.
Yeah, it was good to hear from Miles. You know, it's one of those things that we talk about all the time, that IFS versus solid axle. I think that it's definitely, the technology is there. It's been proven time and time again that those solid axle cars, they do well. They can go fast in the desert, but there's no question that an IFS car definitely goes faster.
So we're just waiting for our course to go live again here at the 2019 King of the Hammers. And it's 4400 class qualifying today. And we're looking at car number 9, Brian Croft, sitting on the line.
Yeah, you know what, we've talked many times all morning about that car. That car is, it could be a completely different game changer for this particular setup. I firmly believe